What's up guys, it's Topsy, and here we are once again discussing what if Duelist Kingdom had a speed duel set. Now, for today's video, we are going to be discussing Mako Tsunami and his hypothetical Duelist Kingdom strategy. And here's the thing, Mako was a really interesting character to examine for this because surprisingly enough, he played very few cards during his arc in Duelist Kingdom. So picking out cards that were very faithful to him in the anime became a little more challenging, but I think I ended up creating a deck that is pretty interesting and gives us a lot of new stuff for water strategies that could be really fun to tinker around with. So with that being said, if you do guys end up enjoying today's video, then a like would be very much appreciated, and hey, you might as well subscribe if you enjoy content like this. With that being said, let's dive in. Alright then, so here we have Mako's deck, and let's go ahead and discuss what skill I ended up giving his strategy. As you can see, there is a lot going on here, and it's probably a little hard to decipher what exactly the strategy is or what I'm trying to do here. So let's go ahead and talk about the skill that I ended up making for this deck. So the expected skill you're supposed to play with this deck is Conservation of the Sea. And this is essentially a skill that's meant to make Umi a lot more playable and a lot more relevant in your deck, like a more integral piece of the strategy. And the skill reads, once per turn during your main phase, you can use one of these following skills, but each can only be used once per duel. Discard one water monster, then add one spell or trap card that mentions Umi from your deck to your hand. So surprisingly enough, there is a lot of spell and trap cards that mention Umi by name. And I felt like by adding the whole caveat of having to discard a water monster specifically, it's a lot more specific of a discard instead of just discarding anything you want in order to get a more specific card. But nevertheless, the cards you're searching out are still very much tied to the strategy and limits you as to where you're supposed to be able to get off this. Being able to tie it behind a once per duel activation and a once per turn per skill, I feel like overall this first part is pretty okay. The next part of the skill reads, shuffle one water monster and one Umi field spell from your graveyard into the deck, then draw one card. If you shuffle back a level 4 or lower normal monster, draw 2. And I thought this was a really cool and clever way of incorporating the vanilla monsters into this effect. Because for one, you get to recycle your Umi field spell, and that's going to be very important once you see one of the boss monsters of the strategy. And not only too, but it kind of like encourages you to play the vanilla water monsters as well, like 7-color fish, the man-eating shark, cards like those in the strategy. That way you can't just abuse it with cards like Terror King Salmon, right? That is a very popular card in Umi strategies. Instead, you have to play the weaker monsters in order to get the better draw effect. So I thought that was like a really cool and interesting way of incorporating that into the skill. Overall, I think this is a pretty strong version of old skills Mako has received for Umi specifically, but not too strong to where like it would break the game. I think it's like it meets a happy balance where it's cool and very interesting in the way you can interact with it. Now we have the second skill, and the whole idea behind this new skill that I ended up giving him is that I wanted to make Kairyu a proper boss monster for Mako. Because not only is Kairyu one of my personal favorite water monsters that he uses, I think it looks so sick, but in addition, Kairyu was his actual boss monster during this arc. I know, it's weird, because he didn't play cards like Legendary Fisherman nor Fortress Will. Those cards were introduced in Battle City. Instead, for Duelist Kingdom, Kairyu was the boss monster. So that's really cool. So I wanted to go ahead and highlight him via a skill. So, the name of the skill is Kairyu, Terror of the Sea, and the skill reads, while Kairyu is face up on the field, apply the following. Face up Kairyus on field are unaffected by your opponent's spell effects. This is kind of like a running on theme of the Umi related cards where they're unaffected by spell cards broadly, but I figured that being able to give them the effect where it's only your opponent's effects for one specific monster felt fair enough. Following on, we have Kairyu on field, gain 200 attack for each water monster on field. So best case scenario, you can set this up to where Kairyu can gain a full on 600 attack boost, which is a fair amount. It takes this monster from a 1800 attack beater to like a 2400 attack monster, which is pretty respectable if it's going to be your boss monster. And it's already getting rivaled by a card like Terror King Salmon that on summon gets that attack stat. And last effect is monsters your opponent controls can't target water monsters you control for attacks except Kairyu. In this way, it makes him feel more like a boss monster for the strategy as well. But those are the two skills that I ended up giving to Mako. Overall, I like both of them a lot. Kairoshin, the Terror of the Sea, is my personal favorite just because, as I said, Kairoshin is one of my personal favorite like water monsters. It's such a cool design, and I feel like it's a really interesting way of making him a lot more viable. I did end up making another skill for him, which was just Legendary Ocean, but ended up scrapping it just because it's boring, and these two skills are a lot more interactive and a lot more interesting. But now it's time to discuss the deck and what exactly I was trying to accomplish with it. And first, the card that's going to get highlighted here is Levia Dragon Duelist. This is a card that I completely forgot existed in SpeedDuels, mainly because it was a card that was introduced in a booster set, and those, let's just be real, those booster sets were not it. They were bad. Like, I don't know what Konami was thinking with them. But so instead I thought, why not highlight this card in this deck? It's a Umi related card, and whenever I think of Mako, I relate him heavily with Umi because it's like his field spell. So I figured that this is like a proper Umi boss monster for a deck, and it's kind of cool, and it relates to other monsters in this strategy as well. Not only that, but it also heavily ties in with the skill Conservation of the Sea, because we are able to recycle that Umi in our deck in order to make use of his very powerful effect more regularly. And I thought that was like a cool way to tie them together. It's a card that already exists in the game, and we're giving it a proper character in order to be using it. So I think it's a really, really cool way of incorporating that. Since we already tie Legendary Fisherman with Mako, and this card is already a card that exists in the game, I figured we'd put this monster in this deck as well. The main reason why is because of the last effect on this card. The fact that it's able to add a level 7 water monster from the deck to the hand. And I feel like that's like a really cool way of tying in the Duelist again. That way we are able to bring out the Fisherman. If it gets outed, we can search out our secondary or primary boss monster. Let me correct myself there. But typically I believe that this is supposed to be searching out Fortress well, but we can also search out the Duelist. And again, these two cards already exist in the game, and I just wanted to, and they just felt really good in this deck. Next up, we have Orca Mega Fortress of Darkness. And this is like a really cool card that I'm surprised hasn't been introduced in SpeedDuel yet. You know, you'd think this card would be in the game already, but this card is mostly just here because I think it's like a really cool gimmick card for water decks. Essentially, this card only gains effects based on what monsters you control on the field. If you control a torpedo fish or a cannon spear shellfish, it's able to either pop a monster or pop a back row. And I think that's like a really cool way of incorporating a water strategy into this. And also, it's not half bad with Umi. You're just able to normal summon it, and it's kind of neat. And with that being said, we have the Cannon Spear Shellfish and the Torpedo Fish. These two cards are completely fine alongside the Orca Mega Fortress. And I feel like are just fun. They just feel like cards that Mako would have used in the anime if they were introduced then. So I feel like they made themselves at home very, very easily here. Next card up is a Mermaid Knight. Again, another card that heavily ties itself with the Umi strategy. It's able to attack twice during the battle phase. And best case scenario, she is a 1700 attack monster that is able to attack twice per turn. I think that's fine. It's nothing crazy, nothing earth shattering. So I feel like this card is 100% fine. Next card up is Starboy. Weird that we don't have Starboy in the game already. It's a really iconic old Yu-Gi-Oh card, and since we already are trying to tie in a whole water deck into this whole thing, I figured like putting Starboy in is really, really neat. Not only that, but this Starboy also ties in with the Kairoshin Terror of the Sea skill, where if you had the Kairoshin and the Starboy on the field, your opponent isn't able to attack the Starboy, and it makes the Kairoshin a lot more powerful. I thought that was like a really cool interaction. But yeah, I figured like I wanted to get this card in the game, and you know what? No better place to put him besides here. Then we have a couple vanilla monsters in the Kairoshin, the Amphibian Beast, and the Jellyfish. So, of course, we've already talked, Kairoshin is one of the boss monsters of the strategy for the secondary skill, but Amphibian Beast and Jellyfish are two cards that Mako's used in the anime that haven't been printed yet, and I figured, like, you know, it'd be nice to get them here. And it fits here. It's kind of neat. I did consider adding in the other iconic vanillas that he had as well, but at that point, I felt like it was way too many vanillas. We had to change the whole construct of the deck, and there would be way too many reprints as well. So I preferred this direction instead. Alright, now for the spell cards, and there's quite a few. Of course, we have the Legendary Ocean just because it's the best version of Umi. Next up, we have Different Dimension Deep Sea Trench. This is like a really cool card that I've never seen in my life. And it reads, when this card resolves, banish a water monster from your hand, graveyard, or face up on the field. When this face up card on the field is destroyed, special summon that banished monster to your side of the field. And the main idea with this card is that you're supposed to activate this card, banish the Levia Dragon in order to have an easier way of bringing him out, because he's a level 7 monster. So bringing him out is not the hardest thing. It's a 2 tribute monster or a 1 tribute monster under Umi, but this is a secondary way of incorporating this card. Also, it deals with the sea, with the deep sea, you know, so it felt very much at home here. And it ties in with our dedicated back removal in Double Cyclone. Double Cyclone kind of just feels like watery too, and being able to like pop your Different Dimension Deep Sea Trench to pop on an opponent's back row and then summon out the Levia Dragon sounds like such a cool like gimmick play. And it could be, it's a 3-card combo, but it's cool nevertheless. Next up, we have Moray of Greed, a dedicated water draw spell for the deck. I did consider giving them Moray of Avarice, but I don't know. I figured the Moray was probably okay just because it already exists in the game. I don't think Moray of Avarice is too much stronger just because it's like a worse version of Allure, but nevertheless, I aided on the side of caution and just put in Moray of Greed instead. For more consistency, we also do have the Salvage to recover our monsters from the graveyard, like the Torpedo Fish and the Cannon Spearfish as well. So that's kind of cool. Next card up is the more controversial one that I have here in Sea Stealth 2. This is another card that becomes Umi on the field, and again, we want to have as many versions of Umi on the field for the Levia Dragon and other cards in the deck as well. But the main thing that this card makes it feel a little hesitant to put it in is the fact that you're able to special summon a water monster from the graveyard that mentions Umi and or a vanilla from the graveyard, but this only happens during the battle phase, so it can't be abused that much. Not only that, but the monster summoned, it's summoned in defense position and gets destroyed during the end phase. So I feel like all that being said, this prevents from the card from being too problematic, even with the Levia Dragon, because you can't activate this effect because it's summoned during the battle phase, and there's no main phase 2 in this game. So this kind of just like gives you a body on field to, I don't know, just have on field. I feel like as a whole, the card doesn't do anything crazy, and it's fine. It's just another Umi on field. So I feel like it should be fine. Next up, we have the Water Hazard, just to get out some of our monsters more easily. Cool interaction is the Water Hazard is able to special summon like the Legendary Fisherman or the Orca if you have a face-up Legendary Ocean, so that's kind of neat. Last up, we have the trap cards. We have Forgotten Temple of the Deep, again, another Umi card, and the effect is kind of neat just because you're able to dodge certain effects by banishing the monster on the field, but besides that, the card is completely fine. Of course, we also have the Tornado Wall, a card that already exists and relates itself to Umi, and it's just very, and if I'm not wrong, I think Mako uses in the anime as well, so I'll fact check that. Last card up is Torrential Reborn. Torrential Tribute's a card that's associated with Mako a lot as well. I think he did end up using it, so I wanted a card that somehow relates to that. That's why I put Torrential Reborn here. And honestly, this card is fine, just because this is just a more specific version of Time Machine, which is a card that already exists in the game. So I feel like introducing Torrential Reborn in this deck would be fine because it wouldn't really change all that much. It's just it's a more water oriented version of Time Machine, so because of that, we can comp it to that card, and a card does nothing right now, so I feel like this would be a cool addition to the deck. But yeah, that's pretty much Mako's strategy. As a whole, I think it's really fun, really interesting. We incorporated a lot of cards that we haven't gotten into the game yet. The power ceiling of it, I feel like it's low enough to where it wouldn't be problematic, but high enough to where it's competent and you can do stuff with it. I wanted to really give a Deathless a deck that you could actually use them, just because it kind of got shafted being introduced in the side sets instead of a core set, like a box set. And as I mentioned, Kairoshin is another card that I really like and want to give him a proper skill. I know there exists one already, but I wanted to give him a skill that makes him feel more like a boss card, you know? But yeah, guys, give me your thoughts in the comment section below. Stay tuned. I'm not sure who I'm going to be doing next. I might do Kaiba, Yugi, Joey. We'll see what I do next. But with that being said, guys, thank you so much for sticking to the end. If you did enjoy today's video, leave a like. And if you loved it, consider subscribing. We make Yu-Gi-Oh content of all sorts in this channel, specifically oriented about speed duels, but I do all sorts of stuff. Alright guys, with that being said, thank you for stopping by, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye.